Well, welcome back, everybody. We're on to our next session, which is Mastering the Art of an Efficient Month-End Close. Our next program comes from Netgain Solutions. They are also a silver preferred partner. And as I said with Zero, Netgain's got its start here in Colorado by a couple of Colorado CPAs. And so again, I always favor Colorado companies whenever I can. So I think that's important since this is the Colorado Society of CPAs and we practice here. Netgains has a unique leasing platform as well as several NetSuite applications. And so today's session is going to be presented by Caleb Christensen, who also presented at Spring and actually was one of our highest rated presenters. The session they did back in the spring was really, really good. Caleb is a CPA firm relationship manager at Netgain and leads the Net Lease for CPAs team. At Netgains, Caleb works with CPA firms and their clients to help implement Net Lease and the rest of Netgain's solutions for automating accounting. Caleb has a background in audit and technical accounting research, where he has published technical accounting guides in conjunction with a national firm. Caleb comes most recently from an accounting consulting firm where he worked with many early stage and late stage SaaS companies facilitating their adoption of ASC 606 and ASC 842. Oh, there's so many ASCs. It just gets me confused. Caleb has worked with a number of public and private software companies as an extension to the controller function. And so we're happy to have Caleb back and presenting today on the mastering of efficient month-end close. So Caleb, I think you can probably share your screen and hopefully Caleb's here. I saw him.
Daryl, we also have Casey, and I just realized I need to unmute them, so give me 1 second.
Okay, I figured there was something happening.
Yeah, we're here, Daryl, not leaving you hanging. Just couldn't unmute ourselves.
Did you see the sweat beads starting to roll down my forehead?
Yeah, I was gonna start asking how many ASCs do you know? Let's get this going.
I know 840. I know 842 because of you, and that's all that I want to know. So we'll leave it to. So sorry, Casey. I know Caleb's doing, but Casey is also our local rep here in Colorado. Also a CPA and our contact here. So it's great to have them based here in Colorado. I think you just get better service. So take it away, guys.
Thank you so much. Sure appreciate it, Daryl. Thanks so much for that introduction. We're really glad to be back here. Had a great time presenting last time. As Daryl mentioned, we're going to be talking about mastering the art of an efficient month-end close. Hopefully this is something that will be really valuable to all of you. We already got a great introduction for me, so I'm not going to spend much time on my introduction, but I'd love to give Casey a chance to introduce himself, and he can share our agenda as well today.
Yeah, thanks for that, Caleb and Daryl. So Casey, I sit here. Our office is right off of I-25 in Lincoln, so probably relatively close to most of you on the call today. I'm a CPA. My background is in accounting. I was at KPMG for a while and then worked at a consulting firm where, relative to our topic today, we did quite a few of close optimization consulting. A lot of our clients were pre-IPO, so we helped them get ready to go public. And I now lead our partnerships team here at Netgain. And like Daryl said, we have our company is founded by a few CPAs, one of whom was at NetSuite before. So all of our products, except for one, sit within NetSuite. So you'll probably hear some biases as we're going through our presentation today. One of those products is a close management software. But our presentation today is not focused on our product in particular, just generally how to optimize our close utilizing the software that's available to us today. As far as an agenda goes, Caleb's going to kick us off, and we're going to talk through some of the common challenges and pitfalls that we see for period end close with our experience with our clients and previous roles, as well as here at Netgain, who want to explore some of our close optimization solutions. We'll talk about the components that lead to an efficient month-end close, discuss some effective workflows and little things we can do to optimize that process, whether it be software or simply just increasing the efficiency of our process without software. Then we'll walk through a fictitious case study that will kind of bring everything together. We'll walk through some common pain points in a real life example, and then discuss how we're going to solve some of those issues going forward. After the presentation today, you'll get our contact information, a webinar recording, and the slide deck that we're going to walk through. And Caleb also let me know that we're going to send out a closed checklist, just an Excel-based checklist that might be useful to review compared to what you're currently doing for your month-end close, and potentially utilize to add that little piece of efficiency to your current process. If any questions come up, send them directly to Caleb or me through the chat box. We'll do our best to monitor those. If we don't get to them, apologies in advance. We will try to get a transcript of those questions and reach out to you directly afterwards if we aren't able to address them here on the call today. With that, I'll kick it over to Caleb.
All right, thanks so much, Casey. As you mentioned, we're going to start by looking at the common challenges and pitfalls. So I've got here on this next slide just a brief list of some of these major pitfalls. So probably the number one thing that I've seen as I've been working with other clients, both in my previous role as well as here, is seeing just the manual effort, like the manual work that's done when we're not using any sort of software solution. It doesn't have to be our software solution, but any software solution. Without that, oftentimes everything's being done in Excel, and then there's a big gap between where you're obtaining the information, where you're doing like your reconciliations, and then where the final data ends up as well. So when we're crossing between multiple different systems and everything is done just manually in Excel without good integrations, it's pretty common to see errors come through, whether those errors be formula-based or just like transpose errors, right? Where someone just enters the wrong reconciled number in. After they've built out a beautiful reconciliation, they still end up getting that wrong. So that's a big pitfall that's harder to resolve, right, without good technology. The next one here is actually kind of tied into this first one, and that's disjointed data sources. So again, when you don't have good integrations, it's really slow, right? It slows down the process. Can you do a good month-end close with accurate data while still having disjointed data sources? Yes, you can. I've seen that before. I've had a lot of clients do that. But the challenge there is with more systems in place that are especially not talking to each other, where you're doing all of the bridging, you have to combine reports together, build manual bridged reports in Excel. We just introduce a lot more errors and slow down the process significantly. The next one here, undefined roles and poor task management. This would be what I might consider like the first place to start when you're thinking about fixing your month-end close. I have seen some clients where they just said, hey, you're in charge of prepaids, you're in charge of AR, whatever. They just vocalize whatever he's in charge of, and they say, run with it. The problem with that is you may have certain reconciliations that fall into more than one category. There's no clear definition there. And so throughout the month, you have people either duplicating efforts, when two people do the same job, significantly slowing down the process, or worst case is the exact opposite of that. Nobody does a role because they think somebody else is doing that, because there wasn't good, clear communication on who should be doing what during that close process. Now, tied to this is task management. You need to first define roles, but once roles are defined, we need to have good task management to be able to see who's doing what and when, so that we can have proper handoffs. As I'm sure you're all very aware, part of the month-end close process is just a natural flow. One person has to complete their reconciliation before the next person can move on to their piece. Without good task management, it gets really cumbersome. There's a lot of bottlenecks that occur because one person is waiting on 3 other people to do their job before they can jump in and take their role on. The next one here is undocumented processes. This one, it's interesting. I would say this is probably the most forgotten one. You could have all the other things in place. I've actually seen this at large firms where they have a great month-end close process, but nobody's documented what they're doing. So the moment someone's out sick, someone takes paternity and maternity leave, someone leaves the company, all of a sudden what was an efficient process falls apart because nobody really understood what that individual was doing. So having clearly documented processes, good at audit trails, good records, is going to be an essential piece. So without that, that's a major pitfall. And then the last one actually has less to do with how you're running things and more to do with who you have. So just not having enough people on your team to run a good month-end close can cause significant issues and really slow down the process. Okay, let's jump over here to the next one now. We're going to talk about the components then of an efficient. We've talked about the pitfalls. We're going to now see the converse of that. All right, so a good month-end close is going to include a few major things here: preparation and planning. So one of the best ways I've ever seen this done actually was at a company that they were also selling software, and they did 3 days prior to close beginning. They all sat down at a table and discussed everything as it stood that was important to get done prior to the month-end close actually beginning, or the period close beginning. Any bottlenecks that were in place, anything that hadn't been done, the whole team knew about right then and there. So having good preparation before the close has even started is an essential way to start out a good, efficient month-end close. And then part of that planning is going to come into checklists, right? Getting back to what we talked about before, having clearly defined roles, good checklists, so that that flow of tasks is in place. If you're going to wait to do that until the month-end close starts, you're just setting yourself back. All right, next one here, data gathering and reconciliation. Making sure that you have all the information that you'll need, everything has been entered prior to starting your month-end close is going to be an essential key piece to having your close run smoothly. Also making sure that you've got everything that you can reconcile. If you go to start a reconciliation and discover that somebody that was supposed to enter bills hasn't entered half of those bills, obviously you're going to be in a lot of trouble there. Adjusting entries, just having a good, smooth process of understanding who should be doing them and when those should be occurring, understanding how accruals should occur, when they should occur, just having a smooth process around there is going to be really important. Financial statement preparation. This is just you've got to have this in place. If you're not doing a good financial statement preparation, your month-end close somewhat for naught, right? Review and analysis. This is just going to be the next logical step here after you put together your trial balance, you've closed out your books, having a good flex analysis process in place. Lastly, here we've got our last two. These are actually less about what you're doing and more about keeping track of how you did things. So documentation and record keeping. And there's lots of different ways that you can accomplish this here. Within software, this is a lot easier because those processes are going to be documented. You can see who did what, when they did it, oftentimes workflow. So you can see this person had to do something before the next person could jump in and approve. So documentation certainly easier in software, though still possible outside of good software solution. And that goes hand in hand with record keeping as well. Also just maintaining a good clean record of every month's month-end close process so that if you're using templates, you can roll those forward every month and not have to start from scratch. It seems pretty basic and logical, but I've actually seen clients that don't do this, and amazingly, they have to rebuild the wheel every single month. So it seems basic, but it's a really important one to do. And then lastly, communication and reporting. And there's kind of two pieces of this. Part of this is just communicating the results to stakeholders, but the other piece of it is also good communication within the team throughout the process. So these are going to be what I would call the essential puzzle pieces. If you don't have all of these in place, your month-end close, A, is not going to be efficient, but B, it's also not going to be complete if you haven't done each one of these. So consider your current month-end close process and evaluate, are we doing each one of these? Is there any steps that we're missing currently? All right, so that's a good month-end close. Let's jump over here to the next piece and talk about a better month-end close. You've got those first puzzle pieces in place. Let's talk about how to raise the bar here now. Task management and approval workflows, automated data management, and automated process documentation, audit trails, and good integrations. And we're going to jump into each one of these individually. So I won't spend a long time on these now, but let's go into each one of these to see how to just have better workflow and optimize all of our processes. So we're going to start here with task management. Okay, a good task management system is going to reduce the risk of bottlenecks like we talked about, right, in the close process, as well as, reducing the risk of not having things be properly reviewed and finalized. So let's talk through each one of those pieces here. A good task management system could be in Excel. That's okay. It's going to be all right. A better one is going to be using something that maybe isn't designed for month-end close. If you're familiar with Monday.com, I've actually used that for month-end close with clients, and that was pretty good. The best one is going to be something that's dedicated to be used for month-end close software. If you can get one native to your ERP, that is the ideal scenario because everything's going to be connected. You can mark something as being completed within that ERP. So what this does for us, though, let's just kind of take a step back and consider this scenario here. You've got your team, maybe it's a team of 5, and 2 people need to do one task before the third person can review that task. A good task management system is A, going to track when that work is done, but B is going to alert that third person when it's time for them to jump in, right? Really moving the process along. Without these type of systems in place, what I have personally seen happen is individual 1 and 2, they've done their work and they thought that individual 3 knew that it was done, and a day goes by, extending the entire close process by a whole day because individual 3 didn't know that it was ready to, that step 1 and 2 had been completed already, and they could jump in to number 3. Checklist is another piece of this, part of task management. They're often going to be pieced together. They could be separate here, but the idea of having every single task listed out throughout the close process is essential. The worst close processes I have ever seen are often those where people are just told, you're in charge of this piece of the financials, you're in charge of this piece, and it's just up to them to know all the things that need to be done there. A good task checklist is going to make it really easy for you to see every little individual piece that needs to be done. And it should be done in a proper order, right, to get that workflow going into place. I'm going to head things over to Casey. I think he's got a little bit he wants to share about task management.
Yeah, I wanted to share a software solution for task management. And in my previous role, we did a lot of, like I mentioned, that close optimization. And what that looked like is on a daily basis, we would have what we call our close stand-up meeting. And this consisted of any relevant players who are part of the close would get together for 30 minutes every morning, and the controller or whoever was running the meeting would sit and point the finger. Okay, what are you working on? What needs to get done? And we would have an Excel-based checklist pulled up, and we would update the status there. Now, everybody had access to this Excel checklist, but nobody really updated it until that daily close stand-up meeting. So it wasn't until that meeting took place each day where the controller, whoever owned the close process, really had the visibility into what was going on with the month-end close. They didn't know if they were going to get blindsided by saying, hey, I'm going to be out sick for the next 3 days. I can't reconcile AP like I was planning on if I'm the AP manager. So contrast that with this task management board that I'm displaying here. And again, this is our product built within NetSuite. There are multiple close software solutions, NetClose being one, obviously, that we'll highlight here. This is a Kanban board, Kanban, depending on where you are, how you like to say it, that can clearly list all of our tasks here. And we can quickly filter. We can see different periods that we want to identify here. Let's say we're looking at December close or November, any other period we want to pull up. We can filter by who is assigned and quickly see, and I want to see everything assigned to me. We can look at who's approving what and only view, if I'm the approver, if I'm the controller, I want to see everything that I need to approve. With these tasks, I can get a quick visualization of where the current status is. So let's look at this estimated payroll accrual that has a few dependencies tied to it. If I'm the preparer of this task here within my ERP, without ever leaving or having to update the Excel spreadsheet, I can drag and drop the current process depending on where I am in the month-end close process of getting this task done. Note that I can't pull it all the way over here to complete. I could drop it here to review, where the reviewer could then check out the task that I have performed as the preparer of this payroll accrual. As we click into this task even further, we can see a very detailed view of what needs to be completed for this task. We can see clear start dates of when I should get rolling on this, how important this task is, when it's due, how high of a risk it is. We can see who the reviewer is, and we can even add comments here. So maybe I'm stuck. I'm preparing this, and I can say, at Caleb, I need help. And then an email would be sent directly to Caleb, so he has visibility real time that I need some help doing this payroll. As for dependencies, there is a task prior to this task that needs to be completed that will be listed here, again, all in one place. Now, Caleb mentioned that there's some turnover sometimes in accounting teams. Now, imagine I'm the assistant controller and I just started last week and I'm assigned this task to run the payroll accrual. That's great. I know how to do that conceptually, but how to actually do it at my new company, I'm going to be a little lost. Within close management softwares, it's typical to be able to list step-by-step instructions on exactly what needs to be done to get this task completed. We even, because of the native embedded nature of this tool, can have links to running saved searches within our ERP to see payroll from a prior period, or maybe we have a link to a report that is common for this task, all housed in one place. So again, the contrast between an Excel-based checklist with tasks versus a closed software built specifically for task management of a month-end close is a total game changer and adds some real efficiencies over just an Excel-based solution. So with that, we'll jump back to our slides.
Awesome. And I'm just looking at the comments here right now. No questions have come through, but I'm seeing some great comments here about what folks are already using. It sounds like we've got 2 or 3 different systems that have been mentioned already. Folks are using to do this task management. I'm glad to hear that. If you're not doing that already, that's something we seriously recommend that you consider, whether it be NetClose or something entirely different. It's going to be a great way to go. Okay, let's jump over here to templates now. So templates, it's pretty basic, pretty rudimentary. I mentioned earlier, though, you'd be surprised how many people are not using good templates. So having a clean, easy to follow template is going to save you a significant amount of time, sometimes hours, honestly, sometimes days. So the nice thing too here is it's going to provide ease of use, so you can just duplicate your efforts every single month, roll that data forward, and have that clear audit trail, which we're going to actually talk a little bit more about in the next slide here. So I wanted to share an experience that I have had. I had a client based out of Salt Lake City. It's been probably 3 years ago now. Huge company. They had a great month-end close process. They had really narrowed it down from about 15 days. I think we were closer to like 5 or 6 days at this point, with the goal of getting it down to 4. But the biggest bottleneck for them was prepaids. And they couldn't figure out why that was the case, because they had a template. They were using a template. They had somebody dedicated to it that understood the process. They brought me in from our consulting company just to provide support for them during month-end close, but also to evaluate all of their processes. And what I quickly found was, although they had a template, the template required like 5 different reports to be run, a whole bunch of formulas to be updated every single month, and just a lot of manual effort getting everything to reconcile. It was a massive, massive process. And they had been they knew it was a problem, but they'd just been trying to fix it within that same template every single month. Because I came in fresh, I didn't know anything about that template. So I had the ability to come in and create a brand new report, a brand new template that was clean, and it shaved literally 2 days off of the process for prepaids. Prepaids should not take 2 days to reconcile, but it was at that time. And we got it down to, I think it was just a few hours to get prepaids done. And it's not that I was smarter than any of them. It's just that I had a new template that I was able to come in with that was much cleaner. So maybe you're using templates today, but you still feel like your month-end close process is not as smooth or as short as you'd like it to be. Maybe consider revamping what you're using as your templates. You're hopefully using spreadsheets at the very least. It could also be a time to consider using some software to help you out with this process that's integrated again with your ERP to just bring you to that next level. If you can't figure out how to do it on your own, software is going to help elevate those spreadsheets you're already using right now. Okay, let's talk about documentation. Oh, actually, Casey, did you have anything you want to share on templates?
Yeah, I wanted to share a little bit of insight on templates and speak to how a software can be augment templates even further. I'll never speak ill of Excel. Like Caleb experienced, Excel templates are a beautiful thing, and I'll never forget some of the fancy formulas referencing multiple sheets, even external workbooks that I've put together and have been very proud of. But Caleb already kind of spoke to one of the big downfalls of templates in Excel. We have formula errors, we have version control, we have templates saved down in multiple different places. That's why here in this best option is that dedicated month-end close software, where templates are actually all housed in one spot. And I'm going to show off how that looks in one solution, NetClose here. So Caleb mentioned reconciling prepaids. Here we can see in NetClose, again, we're right here in NetSuite in our system. We don't ever have to leave. We have all of our reconciliations housed in one place. We can look at any period we want and pop open the reconciliations and quickly get an insight into what the current status is of each of those reconciliations. So if I'm going to open one here, the fixed asset proposal or clearing account, I can see the reconciliation, see any noted items that are here quickly and easily. We can upload any items and have them all stored in one place, even Excel workbooks, all housed here within NetSuite. We can reference any reconciling items with certain text that will upload to our reconciliation module here within NetClose. We can then see all of our prior reconciliations, again, all housed in one spot, none on OneDrive or Google Sheets, everything in this one place. So this is a huge step forward. While Excel templates are that good option, or maybe even borderline better, the best option is a dedicated solution where we can streamline that process and create efficiencies unlike we can with just Excel templates. So I'll highlight one more quick option for our flux analysis templates. Again, I've prepared so many of these with a fancy lead sheet with my percentage of change and then my explanation of why the balance has changed. And I submit them for review to the partner on the engagement, and he would say, hey, I think we need a little more detail here. So then I'd save down a new version, and things got out of hand quickly. But with a dedicated software, templates can all live in one place. And here's that flux analysis that we can see all without ever leaving NetSuite. We can see, if I look over to the right, I can see the explanations are even right here, and I don't have to update everything, insert a new text box to Excel. If I pop this open, similar to the reconciliation module that we just walked over, we can see some of the efficiencies gained here with our flux analysis. We even can leverage AI with us closed software these days that can maximize that efficiency. You'll notice here in my explanation, I said, hey, there's a new US regulation that dampened demand for our products. And a robot generated this AI explanation as to why our revenue was different from the period on which we were comparing. So lots of efficiencies gained by utilizing software dedicated to close management. With that, we'll jump back to our slides.
Perfect. And we've got some more good comments coming in here. I wanted to highlight one from Dan Schmidt. This is actually something I'd highlighted a little bit earlier. I just think is great to point out here. Dan pointed out that I want to actually read exactly what he said here. Our experience is that building a good process and close framework is even more important than the actual software in use. Although once that is done, optimizing with great software is very helpful. I couldn't agree more. If I think about where you need to start, if you don't have a good close process and a good framework in place, it doesn't matter how good your software is if nobody knows what they're supposed to do and there's poor organization. So if you're looking today at your month end close saying, okay, this is great, I'm loving everything I'm hearing, I just don't know where I should really start, that's going to be the first place to start. Get a good framework in place, good process in place, and then you're going to be able to really elevate with good software there to make that even the framework building is going to be significantly easier. And it looks like we're having some recommendations, Blackline, Flowcast, Asana, a few different pieces of software, all amazing. Between Casey and I think we've used multiple different ones, including Blackline and Flowcast. They're definitely great. They all have their downfalls. Every different piece of software does. I would be happy to use any of those. I think one of the benefits too, when you're considering what you want to use, is consider what can integrate directly into your ERP. That's one of the benefits of NetClose. So if you happen to be in NetSuite, it's going to be a great solution. If you are outside of NetSuite, that's where some of these other solutions are going to be really fantastic to consider. Okay, let's jump in and look at documentation and audit trails now. So we talked about templates. They're a really good first step to a clear audit trail, just having good documentation. The next step, though, is going to be in data retention and traceable processes. And the traceable piece is the one that's going to be hardest to achieve without one of these systems that we're talking about today, whether it be NetClose or any of these other ones, Flowcast, Blackline. You can use Excel, and Excel, you can open up the previous month's reconciliations, which is great. Those are a good way to retain your data. It's really hard to trace, though, from start where you initially obtained the data, how it entered into your Excel, and then now how it's finishing reconciling within your actual ERP. That even I found with some of the most sophisticated companies I've worked with that aren't using a good month-end close software, that was still an issue for them month over month. It's just saying, okay, I can see here, it's in my Excel template. I don't know where it came from. I don't know exactly how to get that information again. Whereas a good month-end close software is going to have everything be extremely traceable because you're not jumping around from multiple different systems. Again, what we're mentioning here, good is month-end close software that talks to your ERP. Better is month-end close that connects Excel to your ERP. And then best is going to be one that's native within your ERP. All of these are good options. We just have found that in our experience, you can elevate it to highest when you're directly within your ERP. Anything you want to add to this, Casey?
Yeah, I remember the first time I needed to prepare, I think it was a reconciliation, maybe a flux analysis. And the reviewer review was simply putting a date in a cell in Excel. And I thought, man, is that really all it takes to be reviewed? I could just review for the partner on the job right now. Just throw a date in there, some initials. So let's contrast that with how reviews are completed in a closed software. So again, the native NetSuite NetClose software houses everything in NetSuite, but other solutions house them likewise. So here we can see all the completed tasks for any period that we want to see. We can easily click into each of these tasks and see when they were completed and have that history, documentation, audit trail. Same deal here with our task board. We can see this task was completed and we can see who the reviewer was, change the period, and always see what was completed by who and when. Similarly, with our reconciliations and flex analysis, we can open up each of these and see if we have a reviewer assigned, what the reviewer commented when the review was completed, and of course have the system history audit trail all at our fingertips as opposed to saved down onto who knows which folder. So huge step in efficiency and maintaining that documentation when using a closed software as opposed to Excel checklist or a weak close procedure. Anything else to add before we jump into different types of solutions, Caleb?
I don't think so. Let me just check, make sure we haven't had any questions come in here. It does not look like it. Okay, nope, go ahead.
Okay. There's three main categories of different closed solutions: integrated, hybrid, and native. What we've highlighted today is native, but let's start with integrated. Many solutions these days have connectors or different APIs that can pull information from your ERP into the closed software. So maybe you'll log into closedsoftware.com, enter your credentials, and those connectors will pull information and you'll be able to see everything depending on when the data syncs in that solution. Then we look at hybrid. Hybrid is still technically a separate solution than your native solution, but through different connectors or even customizations to the user interface, it'll look very similar to what you're doing within your native ERP. And some potential downfalls there is that syncing of data might not be as real time as you like, and you might lose some of the functionality of actually operating within your native system that you would get in a native solution. But hybrid is a step in that direction. And then lastly is native, a solution built entirely in or on your existing ERP, where you can leverage some of the functionality that exists only in native solutions. When we were looking at tasks, we had links built out in the tasks in NetClose, where we would automatically jump to saved searches or reports that exist in NetSuite. That's part of the benefit of being that native solution, and you're not having to log into separate systems. So each of these have their pros and cons. Again, clearly we're biased. The native solution is the best way to go. If you're in NetSuite, NetClose is an option, but any software, whether it be integrated or hybrid or native, is going to improve that efficiency tenfold over not using a software.
Awesome. And I'm just going to pause here. I've been watching the comments. It looks like we just had another attendance check come in. I know that there have been folks, it looks like, that haven't seen those attendance checks. If that's the case, please message Daryl, Tiffany, make sure that they can help take care of that. But there is an attendance check right now. So we're going to take just a second to pause so you don't miss anything. Make sure you do that attendance check. We would hate for you to miss that and not get the CPE that you're hoping to earn today.
Yeah, I've sat through CPE where they have a nice loud chime where it's almost impossible to miss. And I've been very grateful for that chime on multiple occasions. So here's your chime.
There we go. Okay. Well, with that, just give you the last few seconds here. We're going to jump into a case study. It's somewhat fictitious here, but it's based on real client information, right? Like what we actually see when we are talking to clients. So the company name is fictitious here, but this is going to be a fairly real life scenario here. So we've got company ABC, and when we talk to them, this is what they've shared. They consider their books to be closed as when these things have occurred. So first, accounting analysis has all been completed. Journals and month entries are posted. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Balance sheet and PL accounts are all reconciled. Everything is cleared out that way. Good financial statements are prepared. The management reviews are completely performed, potential errors are corrected, and management reporting is completed. So that seems like a pretty full list, right? Which is great. I hope that all of you, when you're looking at your month-end close, these are the things that you're considering what a good month-end close should look like. But let's take a look here and dive a little bit deeper as we evaluated, after they shared what that looks like to them, some issues that we see. So first off, in general, ABC company has a lot of manual processes. So sure, they're doing all those things, but they're updating their close calendar manually, and the close calendar is not connected to any of the tasks. It's just maybe like a Google calendar that they have set up, or an Outlook calendar for the entire company. And so you have to constantly going back and forth to see what I should be doing at what time. And then they're also manually rolling forward every one of their close tasks. On top of that here, what's not even listed is the task checklist for ABC Co, we're going to call them today, had to be manually updated as well. And because it's not integrated or even hybrid or anything like that, oftentimes it's missed, right? You're busy doing your actual month-end close, so you forget to update the things that are completed, which can really stop that flow of data so that the reviewer doesn't know it's time for them to go in and do that review. Okay, let's look at the next piece. The reconciliation process is often delayed. So this goes back to that, what we were just talking about here, confusion over task ownership. People don't know what they should be doing because the task management isn't clear. Deadlines aren't clearly communicated. So maybe I know what task I need to do, but it wasn't clear to me that that had to be done by the end of day 1. I thought I had till day 2 to do it. Dependencies hold up reconciliation process. This goes back to what we were just discussing. Approval and review process is messy. This is a tough one. Honestly, that's a really hard thing to fix. Even with software, it can be tough. Software is going to make it a lot easier, but that approval and review process is just a challenging piece here. Support is hard to locate from historical periods. Casey just did a great job touching on how we can resolve this. Adjusting entries, such as reclassifications, can delay that close. This is probably the one I've seen almost more than anything else. Everything looks good, but we're still waiting on those adjusting entries to be posted, so we can't actually close out the books, just slowing everything down. We can't run our final trial balance and put it together our financials. And then lastly, accrual calculation process is oftentimes delayed. This is a tough one because you're waiting on the rest of the company, oftentimes those that are not accountants, to give you all the information you need to be able to get those accruals entered in. Trying to just get accurate estimates, oftentimes back of napkin you're having to do here. And then lastly, estimates are missed or just removed improperly. Okay, so they thought, yeah, we know what a good month-end close looks like. We evaluate, we see a lot of these pieces missing here. Let's now jump in here to this next slide where Casey is going to touch on some proposed solutions to these issues.
Right, thanks, Caleb. So there's a lot of potential issues that arise with our case study company. So let's talk about some of the ways that we can get ahead of those. So one that Caleb mentioned is front loading that close work. There's a law in the world that things generally take as long as you give them time to take. So if you don't have any proper deadlines in place about front loading, it's not going to happen. So this needs to be very intentional. So anything we can do that doesn't have dependencies that we have to wait until month end, let's do anything we can long before month end. I had a friend who was an assistant controller at a lawn care company, and he always was bragging that he played ping pong for 20 days of the month and then actually worked for 10. I thought, man, play a little less ping pong and then you don't have to work 70-hour work weeks for those 2 weeks where you're actually closing the books. So roll forward and prepare as many reconciliations as you can ahead of time, reverse any necessary adjustments from prior periods, be proactive in reaching out to those vendors or departments to make those estimates and accruals. And then any entries that can be made early, let's get those at least teed up. So it'll be the push of a button as opposed to having to start from scratch on, close day 6 or 7. Let's start on close day -2. Next is to identify any bottlenecks that could potentially slow us up. Maybe we know from the last few periods that reconciling our third-party AP solution was harder than we expected. So let's get ahead of that. Maybe try doing the first couple weeks of transactions and making sure that we streamline as much of the process that we can that typically would hold us up.
And I want to jump on in this one real quick, Casey, just to give another real life example. I saw something, the first time I saw it, I thought, wow, this is overkill. The controller and the VP of finance does not need to know about this. And then I realized why they were doing this. So when they sat around a table, they had their AR and AP clerk sitting there telling them everybody that they hadn't received bills for or hadn't paid bills on yet. So, both directions there. They knew every single one of those vendors that needed to be paid or hadn't paid them yet. And this was a huge advantage because then the leadership team that has to make sure that everything flows properly knows beforehand that's one of our biggest ones and we can't move forward until that's closed. So we're going to get 2 or 3 people on that, making sure that that's wrapped up now, 2 days before the close starts. So sometimes it might feel like, oh, just minutia, like, wow, do we really need to get into this much detail? But identifying those before the month-end close period actually begins can be a massive time saver.
Right. And that's a good way to really get some data behind some of the tasks that might surprise you at how much time and effort they take. When you implement any type of software, you'll have those estimates and you'll have real data on how long things took in the prior period. So referencing those points and planning accordingly will be huge, which leads to the next point here: implement standard templates and procedures, whether it be an Excel checklist, if that's the step you need to make to up your close process, or implementing a full-on close software. Utilize those templates to save time and streamline any work that you can. Other support, so think of things outside of close management in particular. I mentioned AP automation. There's different softwares out there that can streamline that process for you that will flow into a more efficient close. Expense management or any other type of system or process optimization is something that should be explored to help cut down on close, as well as that actual close dedicated software. Okay, Caleb, anything to add here before we move on?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Now we're going to jump into a little more specifically. Some of these will be somewhat redundant to what we've discussed so far, but kind of tying everything together before we close out today. Some of the tools in software solutions. Again, these are particular to NetClose, but most any decent close software on the market will have a version of each of these modules. So task management, we discussed this in extent on how implementing task management, getting dedicated resources, the right tools is going to be helpful with step-by-step instructions, deadlines, reviewers, and streamlining those processes. Subledger enhancements. One thing we didn't talk through today is that some close tools have specific subledger enhancements, one of which that NetClose provides is an accrual and an amortization module to make those processes much quicker. Instead of giving your best guess as far as accruals and having to manually back those out when you realize you're wrong, you can quickly modify accruals made at month end using some subledger modules. Reconciliations and flux analysis we've touched on pretty heavily, utilizing the templates that are there built into your system to auto reconcile and have that audit trail are a big step in the right direction. And then close controls. Some software solutions that are either integrated or native to your close into your ERP offer some more granular close controls that can be helpful. An example of this is locking down a period by user instead of just outright locking a period. So let's say once AP has done everything they need, we can lock the AP users out of that period, so we know that no changes are made by them without us knowing, as opposed to having to lock down everything all at once. So that's a huge advantage of NetClose being native to your ERP. Then last, close adjustments. Any allocations that you need to make or consolidations on topside entries can all be done within your close software to, again, just add all those steps into into one place. That about ties us up for everything we wanted to touch on in optimizing close. We can open things up to any other questions. We'll review the chat box, and we also have some common questions that we can touch on if needed.
Yeah, so we'll give everybody just a second. I think we've got 5 minutes here before we've got a hard cutoff, and let me know, Daryl, if I'm wrong about that. Okay, perfect, 5 minutes. So if you have a question, please send in a message directly to Casey and I. We're gonna go ahead and start answering some of these common questions, but I'm gonna be watching that chat box in case anything else comes in. So the first one I wanna ask Casey here is just like, what type of companies are you seeing that have found it's worth it to invest in software and move from Excel templates to using software, whether that be NetClose or something else entirely. But is there like an average headcount that you're seeing?
Yeah, headcount is probably the biggest metric we use that would qualify somebody. And for context, our NetClose software is on a headcount basis for pricing, and that starts at 3. That's probably on the small end, but it also depends heavily on the complexity of the close. Sometimes you're closing dozens of subsidiaries that can get very redundant and confusing and disjointed. Sometimes you do just have a lot of players involved. So I would say headcount is probably the biggest reason why somebody would explore a close. And for a little more context, I would say not our average, because we have some really large outliers, but our median size of customers using NetClose is probably 6 to 10 users that would qualify for at least exploring a closed software.
Awesome. And we did have a question come in here from Dwan. It looks like, what is the range of cost and time for implementation? So it's going to be hard to be super specific, but maybe you can just give us some broad stroke information here, Casey.
Right. Because the close management software isn't as connected to your GL as maybe some other enhancements to your ERP, implementation isn't terrible. We've sent the average close or team size of 6 to 10 go live as quickly as a couple weeks. So it obviously varies on appetite of the client, but a couple weeks could be pretty realistic unless you're a large public company with hundreds of users. Then I'm not going to promise a couple weeks by any means.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, and let's see. Another one here. What we have, we just want to highlight again, Tiffany just dropped in a free close checklist. That's a common question we get. Do you offer any free resources? We do have a free close checklist. If you're not using any checklist, that's a great place to start. At least use that checklist. So there was just a link posted. Please download that. No cost at all to you. You can get started here. Let's see. Another common question we see here is, what is the gold standard for how long a month-end close should take? And I can take this question here. It's a really good question. I can tell you when I was doing this on the consulting side, whenever I was brought into a client, my goal was to get between 4 and 5 days for a month-end close, which for a lot of clients when I first came in, that seemed absolutely unreachable. I mean, I had some that were 30-day closes. I had some that were, 20, 15 and 20 is, I would say, honestly, pretty standard that you'd see. But as far as like what that gold standard is and what my goal was always is to get it down to 4 or 5 days, essentially 1 business week. If you can get a less than that, that's great. But I would consider that to be somewhat of the gold standard for a good period close process.
Yeah, we had another question about what ERP stands for. It looks like, somebody just answered it. Enterprise Resource Planning, kind of a fancy name for your accounting system. It's usually the system you use for accounting, HR, some type of operation sometimes as well. Anything that the company needs for it. Yeah,
think QuickBooks, Intact,
Suite, Workday. Yeah.
Yep, all those are going to be your ERP. Okay, great. Well, we are coming up on time here. Looks like we got maybe 30 seconds left. So just a huge thank you to everybody. We're grateful that we could be here to present today. Thanks so much to COCPA as well.
Yeah, thanks, gentlemen. That was a great presentation. As always, you guys do a great job. And we're happy to have you. So again, always recommend our partners as your first choice. We will have their information in a follow-up. And so you will be getting that tomorrow. I did share their checklist in the chat, but that will also come in the email as well in case you missed it. But feel free to reach out to Casey or Caleb